You're listening to the Seahawks Insiders, getting you ready for Seahawks football every Sunday. Presented by Delta, the official airline of the Seahawks. Now, here's your host, Jen Mueller.
Welcome in, and I know that, John Boyle, we are supposed to be looking ahead to the matchup against the Falcons, but can't we just go backwards a little bit?
Sure.
I mean, when the defense pitches a shutout, can't we just sit with that for just a little bit longer?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough to do in the NFL. I don't care who the opponent is, who the quarterback is. Shutting a team out for 4 quarters is tough. And we saw it. They got a turnover in the red zone, and the defense kept them out. They had a drive later in the game that got into field goal range, and then they backed them up. So that's a really cool accomplishment. It's hard to do.
It is also fun when you walk into the locker room and you're like, yeah, I know that the offense score. I know that we need to talk to the offense because they scored points. Mm-hmm. All I want to do is talk to the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think 5 of my 6, 4 of my 5, I think they were defense.
I mean, that's fair. The offense didn't have its best game, and Minnesota's defense gave them some trouble. So I think most offensive players would be the first to tell you, the defense should get their flowers after that game before the offense.
Yes. Well, and Ernest Jones gets his flowers as he is the player of the week.
Yeah.
Deservedly so. Man. That was really fun. That was really cool to hear the post-game comments from him. That was just, it's really cool.
One of my favorite moments, and you would have been in the locker room so you didn't see this, but when Cooper Kupp's in there doing his press conference, and there's a little hallway that players come in from the locker room to get to the press conference, and unbeknownst to Cooper Kupp, Ernest Jones is already in that little area waiting, and someone asked Cooper Kupp about Ernest Jones because they've known each other since they played together in L.A., and Cooper Kupp just gave this really long, great answer about what an amazing leader and person he is. And you could see Ernest was getting a little emotional listening to that. And it was just a cool moment because Cooper Kupp wasn't doing it because he knew that Ernest Jones was hearing it. It was coming from the heart, but it was pretty special to hear.
As a result of that game, there's been a lot of conversation about where does this defense and where does the defensive line stack up against some of the Seahawks greats. Mm-hmm. And I have heard some folks on social media and online saying that this could be the best defensive front that the Seahawks have ever had, which I'm like, okay, time out a minute. It is really good.
Yeah.
But that Legion of Boom era, that nobody was scoring points back then.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was really interesting, and I had Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett together in my kitchen. New episode of I Cook, You Measure coming up soon.
They know a thing or two about it.
They do, but I asked them, I said, okay, so it makes me uncomfortable to do the comparison, right? Because I don't want to shortchange anybody, and it's a totally different game. And I asked them, and I said, what do you think about the comparisons that are being made? And both of them said, it is a form of flattery. It's awesome that they are being compared to what we did, and it's not fair to the current team.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. They're all for it. They're like, yeah, but don't do that because we already got to the top. Mm-hmm. Let this group be this group. Yeah. And it's not about are you better than we were. It was so fascinating to hear them talk so thoughtfully about this team. They love this team. They love this defense. They both said, "Oh man, I would love to play for Mike McDonald in this defense." But they're drawing a lot of comparisons, and I thought that was.
I like
cool.
that of not comparing. Let's let's let this group do what it's going to do over the next however many years, and maybe then we look back and compare the two, and hopefully we're talking about another championship defense. But yeah, I mean they're different schemes, different players, different strengths, but just in terms of when you look at just numbers of all sorts of different metrics, this is the best defense the Seahawks have played since those early Legion of Boom era teams for sure. So they're doing it differently, but it's awfully impressive to watch, and it does start up front with that group.
Well, and so some of the numbers, just to level set, in case you haven't looked at them recently, the second best rush defense in the league, 88.8 yards per game. They have not allowed a 100-yard rusher in 22 straight games now, or did I give an extra? I gave him an extra. I'm manifesting.
And you know who one of the most recent guys to do it was? Going to see him this week.
Yeah, that one's going to be a tough one. Yeah, I was gonna hold off.
I thought this was your segue into
going to Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson, who he did have 100 against them in Atlanta last year. Then they allowed 100 against Buffalo the next week, and since then they have not had a 100-yard rusher.
Okay, well then, is this vindication? Is that what we're going for this week?
I think we're just going for playing some good ball and getting a win.
Okay, well, and it is going to be tough since John took us right there into the matchup against the Falcons.
I was following your lead, Jen.
Nope. Since John took us right there, we're just going to jump right in because that is a big-time playmaker in all phases of the game.
Well, I think they've actually activated him more in the pass game than we saw last year, which is an added challenge. Sometimes it's designed for him. Sometimes it's just in the check down game, screen game. So he kind of comes alive in like every aspect of the game, which is something we have to account for. But he's a really talented player. I mean, he's got great hands, can track the ball. He's got great vision. He's got great acceleration. I mean, leads the league in missed tackles, which that probably paints a pretty good picture for you. So he's a really, really good player.
Yeah, I think probably the first word that comes to mind for me is elusive. You watch Robinson run, and it's just like the way he moves he's not like a tiny, shifty guy either. He's 216 pounds, but he is like this fluid, just graceful athlete who's so hard to bring down. I don't think I'd watched enough of him until when the Seahawks played him and watching him through a full game. I was very impressed. So, yeah, it's no surprise he's on pace for a 2,000-yard season in terms of total scrimmage yards. Yep. And huge part of what they do in the Seahawks, if they're going to keep that streak going and keep playing, some of the best run defense in the NFL, it's going to be a tough challenge.
Well, and just to kind of back that up, Bijan Robinson does lead the league in scrimmage yards per game. He has led the league in the most missed tackles forced since his debut in 2023. By the way, that's also something that he did in college as a junior at UT. He set the record nationwide for the amount of missed tackles. And you think about him in the just like yards after carry in the pass game, 578, like far and away the most on the Falcons team. But that's significant for a guy who plays running back.
Yeah. I mean, that means they're getting him the ball and short passes in space, and he's making a lot with it. So I know I think a huge chunk of that came on one play earlier this season where he scored a long one. But yeah, I mean, he's. They've got other weapons for sure. This isn't a one-man show, but he is somebody you are going to really have to key in on if this defense is going to have a good day.
Well, and you have a veteran quarterback who is going to look to get him the ball. And I know that this conversation around the Falcons has changed a little bit, the injury to Michael Penix. And for those UW fans and Pacific Northwesterners, that was a bummer to see for sure. But I don't understand how the Falcons have the record that they have, John. And we were talking about that a few minutes. I don't understand how this has played out this way.
Yeah, I think coming off of last season, they were, I believe, an 8-9 team that has a lot of talent. You figured, second year under a new coach, and they got a lot of weapons. And then, Michael Penix looked pretty good late in the year. And this, to me, it felt like they were a team on the rise who'd contend in that division. And unfortunately, they've had some issues. They've had some injuries, and they also lost a lot of close games that they've been in. So, yeah, this is not, despite their record and, recent, I think they've lost, 6 of 7. This is not a bad team by any means, and there's a lot of talent there the Seahawks have to contend with.
Well, and going back to the veteran quarterback, I mean, the Seahawks have seen him before. He has seen a lot of football, and what Mike McDonald sees from last year to this year, well, here's what he's got.
Well, they're going to say the same thing about our team. They saw us, and we've evolved and changed some things and tweaked some things, and it's different guys on the roster. So, they're playing a little bit differently on offense. When we played them last year, they were almost exclusively 11. Now that they played dang near a whole game in 13, they've played a lot of 12. So we got to be ready for all those personnel groups, which is a little bit different. A little bit more under center since he took over. They were pretty heavy pistol last year, so some tweaks on how they're operating since he took over for Penix.
Well, and those numbers, he is 69 for 109. Nope, I said that totally wrong. Hang on a second. He's completing 63% of his passes. He has thrown for 683 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. So I would say those don't necessarily jump off the page. But look, if he knows that he's the guy, again, you've got enough experience. Now, the Seahawks defense has been playing out of this world, but you just kind of wonder what that ends up looking like when you have some of those weapons. And you might get another one back this week in Drake London. That this game, it makes me nervous for some reason. I think that's what you're hearing from me today. I think it's nerves and anxiety, I think.
Well, I think that comes also with the position the Seahawks are in right now of like, they're in control of their own destiny right now. They have a chance to do some really good things this year. But when you're in that position, that also means every game feels so big because, like, oh, God, you got to hang on and stay on top. And so, yeah, I mean, it's such a cliche, but in this league, I mean, we saw it last week. I think all the Thursday, Friday games, like every team that was considered the underdog going in won those games. There's not, even the quote unquote bad teams can still, they're still talented and they can sneak up on you. And this, again, is a team with a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. So, obviously the way the Seahawks are playing is Mike McDonald would say, like, they've earned the right to feel like they can beat anybody, but that doesn't mean you can just show up. Like, you got to get through this week preparing well and on top of your game and then go play your best on Sunday. I
really am appreciating the phrase earn the right.
Yeah, like that.
He is, yes, that one's grown on me.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that one. I tell you what, before we get into a little bit more of this, let's pause and just give our sponsor a chance to say a few words.
Seattle is a city wired for change, where innovation drives the everyday, and Delta is proud to invest in that momentum. With nonstop flights to over 60 global destinations from Seattle, Delta connects you to the world with thoughtfully designed cabins, premium service, and a seamless travel experience, all while supporting the community you call home. So your travel time feels more like me time. Delta, flying Seattle forward. Visit delta.com or download Delta's app to book your next trip.
It is the time of year to travel. It is also the time of year to buy holiday presents. John Boyle, you are wearing one that I am very envious of. It is part of the new Jimi Hendrix Seahawks collection. It is here. It's got a cap, a tee, and a sweatshirt, and it exemplifies the energy, passion, strength, and determination of two Seattle icons. It is available in the store and online. It is exclusive. It is limited edition. I would not wait to get this.
Look how
late.
good this looks. Even on me. If it looks good on me, imagine how good it will look on your loved one.
We've had the conversation. The girls are not going to get this hat.
Oh, no.
No, that's...
Some items that I bring home, there can be I can share with the kids or with my wife, but...
That one's not.
Keeping this one.
We're not going there.
Yeah.
There's been a little bit of sharing in the back end of the Seahawks defense at cornerback and just kind of how they've done that rotation. And one of the things that we have seen is Coby Bryant coming through and just like acting as though that was always his position, right?
Yeah.
Like he was meant for that role at safety. And I don't know that was always the way it presented itself in practice.
I mean, yeah, it was, it might feel like a long time ago. People forget, like, he came here as an outside cornerback from college, playing opposite Sauce Gardner, actually, and wins the Thorpe Award, and you think he's going to come be a corner. They move him to nickel. He's, does a really good job there as a rookie, but then the combination of injuries and Devin Witherspoon showing up costs him that nickel job, and so it's like, now what do we do with him? And the previous coaching staff started tinkering with him at safety, and then last year is where it really took off for him. And it is interesting to think back of, like, Coby Bryant and Josh Jobe are such, like, staples of this defense now. We're so used to being out there. But it was that Atlanta game last year where Seahawks were beat up in the secondary, and they're both starting, I think, for the first time last season. Jobe was still in the practice squad, I believe, at the time. And there's all this trepidation. Oh, they're so thin in the secondary. Now these guys are just stud players out there.
Well, and it was 100% of the snaps that Coby played on Sunday, 62% of the snaps from Josh Jobe. And yeah, John just mentioned it, but let's go back because Mike McDonald had some really cool things to say about those two and the growth over the last year.
Yeah, well, Coby, I mean, a guy that he made a ton of plays, very similar to Reek, like just said, hey, look, I'm gonna take charge back here, and I don't care if I'm playing or not, but like I'm gonna be a force, and at some point I'm just gonna kind of kick the door down when I get my opportunity, and when preparation meets opportunity like it did, he played great. And we know his ability to attack the football, but I'd say his ability to communicate back there, his competitiveness, really resonates throughout the rest of the team. And he's put himself in a great position to have a heck of a career at safety, which I'm really happy for him for that. Jobe's the same thing. I mean, we've talked about his arc, but what I love about his mentality is he literally competes every day. And about like a great example is the play he made on EJ's pick last game. A point of emphasis of his has been working his off technique in man-to-man, and he was put in an off man-to-man situation against one of the best receivers, in the game right now, and he made a phenomenal play breaking on the football and set up that pick. So that's a great microcosm about just how he operates.
Those two guys, Josh Jobe and Coby Bryant might be two of Mike's favorite players to talk about. And Ed and Dirty, too, loves talking about those guys. And it's, not just because they're really good players and good guys, but it's like they really epitomize what Mike loves to preach about this team of, all the stuff we hear about, it's 70, not 53, and it takes all 70 and all that. It's like Josh Jobe was a practice squad guy that, no one really knew a lot about. And Coby Bryant was a guy who unfortunately was kind of stuck on the bench, lost in the shuffle. And if you show it in practice and you show it on special teams or whatever opportunities you get, if you're making the most of them, which both those guys were, you're going to earn more opportunities. And now they're both starting guys, again, playing a huge role on arguably the best defense in the NFL. And that's, A, really cool for them and good for the team, but B, it's such a good teaching point for the coaching staff to be like, look, just because you're on the practice squad right now or you're the third string, whatever, that doesn't mean you got to stay there.
Yeah. They're also two of the, I'm going to say soft-spoken guys. Jobe for sure. Coby can be out there, but it is kind of funny because I was going to talk to Josh after the game, and he just totally snuck out of the locker room. He
ducked you.
It was like, I'm good. And you know what? That unit could be getting better soon with the potential return of Julian Love. It is hard to believe that we have not seen him very much this year, but the news so far, it's pretty good as he returns to practice this week.
Yeah, we have a plan for him this week in terms of how we're going to practice him every day, but we feel great about where he's at. I know he's really excited, and we'll kind of go from there on how we want to go into the weekend with how he's going to go. His even like let's say everything went perfectly to plan. Anytime you're coming off a stretch where you're not playing, you gotta have some sort of ramp back in. So that's how we're operating.
Yeah, Mike McDonald would love to get Julian Love back out there this week, and we'll see if that happens, but they are not going to rush it. Hamstrings obviously are notoriously tricky. He's already had one setback with that injury. That's why he's missed. He's only played 3 games this year, which surprised me when I looked that up. I was like, man, he's missed a lot of time.
But he's been around the team
so
much.
You see him around. He's on the sideline. He's traveling. And look, it helps, too, that Takahata's just been awesome filling in for him and toughed it out last week playing through that oblique injury, which cannot be fun. We know he was playing through some pain. But, yeah, it's great that you have a guy stepping in and playing so well that you don't feel like you have to rush someone back. Because when they do bring Julian Love back, again, could be this week, could be next week, they want to make sure he's back for the season because he's such a big part of that defense. And it's, what a nice little bonus to get a Pro Bowl caliber player back in December for the stretch run.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of guys that could be coming back.
Garrett
just
Reed as well.
Right at the right
back
time.
To practice, yeah. So.
Yeah, which makes me hope that everybody who needs to win some fantasy football games, it makes me hope that you have the Seahawks defense because they are on quite the roll. But you know what? I am not the one to be giving you advice, especially at such a critical point of the fantasy football season. I'm gonna turn it over to our fantasy insider, Scott Engel.
Thanks, Jen and John. This is an all-important fantasy football week 14. You're trying to clinch a playoff berth or sew up a first-round bye. Every move is important, but don't overthink it. We got some really good starts for you this week. At quarterback, expect a bounce-back game for the Rams. And Matthew Stafford, he is a top 3 fantasy quarterback for week 14. I'm expecting 2+ touchdown passes. If you need a streamer for this week, hey, Sam Darnold, the Seahawks. They go to Atlanta, and the Falcons over the last 4 weeks ranked 28th in fantasy points per game allowed to opposing quarterbacks. So you can use Sam Darnold if you need him in week 14. At running back, I expect Quinshon Judkins to get in the end zone more than once against the Tennessee Titans, and R.J. Harvey could have his best yardage production of his rookie season against the Raiders. At wide receiver, the Seahawks did a great job of holding down Justin Jefferson last week, but I expect them to bounce back against the Washington Commanders. And in that same game, Terry McLaurin is back. He performed well against Denver last week, which isn't easy with that secondary. McLaurin is a must-start again as a fantasy wide receiver, too. Last week he showed that he can be matchup-proof at times. And at tight end, Juwan Johnson is very, very underrated. I have him as a top 5 tight end right now for this week. He has finished as a fantasy tight end 1 in 4 of the last 5 weeks and gives you a really good floor. Check out more from me on Seahawks.com, the news tab, Fantasy Insider, and also rotobowler.com with my lineup spotlights every week. Back to you, Jen and John, for Week 14 Seahawks-Falcons.
Thank you, Scott. I also realized there's another shopping opportunity, John.
Yes, that.
Inspire Change collection is out as well.
Uh,
So you are not wearing that today.
I can wear it next week. Should we talk about it next week? Well, we can.
We're going to talk about it both weeks because, look,
Okay.
here's the thing. If you were anything like me, you just want to get your holiday shopping done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that these things are going to last. So if you are already shopping for the lovely hat that John has on, also just check out the Inspired Change collection. It is a variety of headwear, including caps and a beanie. And this month, 12% of the in-store sales proceeds will be donated to the Native Action Network, an organization that builds intergenerational leadership and amplifies the voices of Native women. So you can shop, you can cross those things off of your Christmas list, and you can be doing great things in the community.
I tell you what, I'll wear one of the hats next week so people can see it.
Okay. I could one day
Or
wear
they
a
could
hat
just go on the internet, go to the press
Or they
shop,
could just, before, I tell you what, just
There
don't
are
even
other
wait.
ways, yeah.
Yes, you can model it,
I mean,
but there
yes,
are
look,
other ways
you really
to
want
do
to see it
this.
on me. I get it.
That's going to be the deciding factor, John. That's going to be the one where they say we have to. Okay, let's talk about this Atlanta defense going against Seattle's offense. And I waited to do this because this defense, it's legit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's legit with young dudes. They are one of 4 teams to have multiple rookies with at least 5 sacks in a single season over the last 10 seasons.
Pretty good.
This is something that does not generally happen. In their first round picks, Jalen Walker and James Pierce, they each have 5 sacks. That's pretty impressive.
No, they're getting after teams. I mean, it's different than what we saw in Minnesota, but one common thing is they do like to blitz a lot. They are second only to the Vikings in blitz rate, 41.6% according to Next Gen Stats, 7th in the league in pressure rate, and they are, I believe, 3rd in the NFL in sacks with 41. So this is a team, much like last week's opponent, that can make life tough on quarterbacks. So the Seahawks going to have a better plan because there was a struggle last week. The 4 first-half sacks, and that really kind of derailed their offense last week.
Yeah, in fact, Sam Darnold was blitzed on a career-high 63.3% of his dropbacks. He completed 14 of 26 passes, just 128 yards overall. It didn't look like it was much, and so you kind of wonder, well, is that exactly what you were going to expect this week, or does that pressure look just a little bit different?
I think you'd have to look. It's like a combo platter. Like you got to look at each team independently to understand how they operate, maybe some tendencies, where it's coming from, and what situations, what personnels, that sort of thing. But you also have to have a feel for how you've been attacked in the past and understand the tape that they're watching as well. So I think it's both, but they do a good job. They do a really good job. They're an aggressive unit. They play hard. Brick does a really good job of affecting the quarterback. So they got a good staff there, and you can tell they're really well coached. It's a good blend. They got some young guys that are playing at a high level, which tells me they're coaching the crap out of those guys.
I will say the Vikings deserve a lot of credit for what they did defensively, but I do wonder, for all the trepidation, I do wonder what the Seahawks offense would have looked like in the second half after they made some adjustments had they had to really get after it and throw the ball, because they were only up 13-0 at halftime, but the way their defense was playing against that rookie quarterback, I think they probably got a little conservative. Let's take care of our quarterback, let's take care of the football. But I do wonder, the pressure, the protection looked better. They were getting them off sides a bunch in the second half, which makes me think they might have changed a few things up. Because if you remember off that right edge, I forget who it was from Minnesota, he was flying off the snap in the first half. So I feel like they might have done something to change it up on him. So again, they need to be better against the blitz, but I don't think we should assume they just don't have answers for it because of one half.
Well, we do know, though, that they are one of the most productive teams when it comes to number of sacks. 41, that's third in the NFL. That's one more than the Seahawks have. And they've got 15 different players with at least a half sack. So we're talking about somewhat mirror images. Seattle has more. And that was a cool thing from Leonard Williams last week, talking about the levels and the number of players that had sacks.
Yeah, that's a cool thing about this Seahawks defense. We're getting off track here, but I love that about the Seahawks defense of how
I'll talk about the defense all day.
They don't blitz a lot in terms of sending more than 4, but they send a lot of different people at you, and they got corners with sacks, they got safeties, they got linebackers. It's Mike McDonald's really good at messing with teams in terms of we're only bringing 4, but good luck figuring out which 4.
Right. Yes, I do love that. Let's get back on track with this Falcons defense, because you know what else they're good at? They're really good in the red zone, and they're really good inside the 30. They allow opponents to score touchdowns just 41% of the time. League average, once you get inside the 30, is 50%. They're allowing 3.9 points per drive when a team is inside the 30. That is the fourth lowest in the NFL. And one of the things Seattle has not been able to do in the last few weeks is finish in the red zone the way that they would like.
Yeah, over the course of the season, they've actually been a pretty good red zone team, but it's been the last few weeks. Granted, two of those games were really tough defenses, Minnesota and the Rams, and that's where the numbers really dipped. But yeah, they were, I believe, 40% the last three games, and they're trending closer to 60% the rest of the season. So it's not necessarily a season-long problem, but just one they need to pick up from where they've been the last couple of weeks.
Okay, we have taken a look at both sides of this matchup. There's only one thing left to do, and we will do that after a word from our presenting sponsor.
Seahawks fans, 12 Status is back benefiting you this season. One passing yard gets you 1 mile all Seahawks season long. 12 Status members get priority boarding out of SeaTac all Seahawks season long. And 12 Status members get a 12% discount at the Seahawks Pro Shop on the 12th of each month. Sign up now at 12status.com.
Okay, John, the two things you need to see for a Seahawks win are?
Well, we've talked a lot about it, but let's get the pass protection going because I think we can tie the turnovers into that. A lot of the turnovers we've seen this year have been when the pressure's getting to Sam Darnold, and that's really true of any NFL team. Pressure tends to lead to mistakes, so get the protection better. Let's keep it under. Let's call it under 2 sacks, so one or 0 sacks, which has been really the norm for this team most of the year. But we saw them struggle with that there, so let's do that. Other side of the ball, I want the defense to stay greedy like they've been and keep turning the ball over. 5 turnovers last week, something they haven't done in a long time. I'm not saying you're going to shut teams out every week, but if you keep taking the ball away, then you're going to have a lot of success. So let's call it 3 turnovers.
Ooh, 3 turnovers.
Yeah, or we could just say, how about more turnovers on defense than sacks allowed?
Okay.
There's my formula. I just made it up. Sack
great.
to turnover ratio.
Great. I don't know that I can match you on that one because I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to limit Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I want that streak to continue where you don't allow the 100-yard rusher. But quite honestly, as long as you just hold him to less than his average, I'm a little bit more concerned with potentially screen passes on the outside. But I need him to be far under his
and look,
season
sometimes
average.
if he gets 100 yards on 30 carries, you can live with that.
Right, I can.
You don't want the explosives, which he's very capable of.
Yes, I would like to limit explosive plays. That's probably the best way to put it. Let's limit explosive plays, and let's have 3 fewer. That's pretty greedy. 2 or 3? Only 2 or 3 explosive plays.
Ooh, yeah,
it's greedy. But
Do
John
it.
always lectures me about I'm not greedy enough. So let's do that. And I don't want to see Jason Myers this week for field goals.
Rude. Your player of the month, you don't want
I know, but he's worked so hard. I just want to give him the week off. I want the Seahawks to finish in the red zone. He can kick extra points. He can kick as many extra points as he wants.
Fair.
But I feel like we should give him the week off and just let his leg rest.
Like how sometimes there's games where you just want Michael Dixon to hold.
Right. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
That's my plan.
I like it.
That's what we've got for you this week. We'll be back with you next time on another edition of the Seahawks Insiders Podcast.